Beautiful day, Patriots. How are you? We're going to talk about how hard it is to wake up from the system that we were born into. And I would like to say right now, by no means do I feel like I'm awake or that I understand everything, because life is the learning process. And some of the things that I thought of 5 years ago helped me understand what I understand now. But yet, also, some of the things that I thought 5 years ago turned out to not be true. And that goes back every single decade of one's life if you are learning and studying in your life. If not, and if you aren't the type of person that studies continuously, then we get lulled into entertainment and the TV. Okay? And everybody wants to feel like they're awake, and when we do that, then we say, "Oh, look at those guys over there, they're asleep." So that obviously means I'm awake. And in the Bible it talks about the great deception, and that it will deceive even God's most elect. And forgive me if I'm writing this number down wrong. I believe it's like 144, 100,000 people, the number in the Bible, that will be chosen. And if you think about that through all history, that's not very many people. I mean, our odds are probably better at winning the lottery. And that's rigged. Just as like our system's rigged. And so, everybody, like, let's say if, okay, like in the Q community, they're like, okay, everything's fake. Our politics have been fake and they've been lying to us and stuff. But yet they still want to go out and say, I'm going to go vote for Republican and stay within the exact same system. And if you're just tired of the loop, and if you're tired of just seeing the the same rhetoric, okay, look at you whoever's watching this, you know that you watch TV, and you watch Twitter, and you watch YouTube, and you're constantly watching the politics, and you're trying to figure something out, right? You're trying to learn something. You're trying to see where they are tricking us. If you're watching this video, you personally in your heart know that something's not right. And every time you learn more, it just doesn't get you really more to the truth. It's just this system that keeps telling you to just kick the can down the road. So if you can relate to this, just I'm asking you to give yourself a timeout for just a few minutes. Like, say, for a couple days even. You're still going to go look at all your other stuff, but just for maybe for a couple minutes, for a couple days, go and watch and look at pictures of old buildings around the world. And I don't mean the pyramids, and I don't mean any type of old megaliths. None of that. I don't want you to look at any of those things. I just want you to go look at old buildings and notice all the columns all over the world, all over the world, all over the world. And notice that the architect is the same all over the world. And also, I would like you to look at the grandeur of how large these buildings are. Just how incredibly large they are today. Again, I don't want you to look at any megaliths. I just want you to look at old black and white photographs of cities and towns. Plenty of YouTube videos of them and them trying to explain how our history has been stolen. And if you think about this, how can history be stolen? Well, you and I, if you're over 30, we all have photo album books and pictures. And we're told that our pictures only go back maybe 150 years, I guess, photography. So in reality, we've only got 150 years of picture proof of history. From then on out, it's drawings and writings. And right now in our history, right this minute, right now, everything's gone digital. And nobody has actual photocopy pictures anymore in this timeline of ours. So basically from like, say, 2000 is when Kodak and all the, I'm just pulling that number of a rough about time. Disposable cameras, remember that, it's very difficult to get photographs of printed photographs as hardcore evidence now. In the digital world, all pictures and all history could be erased in a heartbeat. Now, I just want to say why pictures are important and go look at these buildings, and they're not the story. The timeline that these buildings were built cannot be what they're telling us. Where did all the... I don't want to fill your head with too fast. I want you to go, and we're talking about how can they steal these timelines? How can they steal our history? So if you just do this and just have open eyes and listen to all these different people on there talking about different things about how big these doors are and buildings and stuff. So then go look at, so start off looking at the assailant asylums. This one is way too weird. The assailant asylums all over the world are some of the most incrediblest, largest, hugest buildings ever made. With these huge castle type things, these huge castles all over these turrets and layers of buildings and buildings. Why were assailant asylums so important? And why were they so large that they needed to be so large to house how many people? How many people were insane in our society that needed to be taken out of society and put away someplace because of the way they thought? Because of the way they thought. I'm not saying that people don't have mental disorders, but I'm just sitting there seeing if you can wake up and see things. And then they destroy these buildings. Go look at Australia. Supposedly, they brought over prisoners over to Australia, and 5 years later, one of the biggest things they built was an assailant asylum. Anyways, and these buildings were too large and too big and too grand to have been built in the time that they're saying that they were built in the history of Australia. It's the same thing in America, same thing in Europe. And if that starts to interest you, then just go look at cathedrals around the world. Go look at cathedrals around the world. Why does China have cathedrals? Every single one of them. Every single country, every single continent has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cathedrals. How were these all built? Go look at the biggest and largest cathedral in the world is in New York City. What? New York City! And if you go look at New York City's cathedral, you can see that it's in disrepair and falling apart off of the top. It's been there for a very long time. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be a cathedral in America, but it matches the cathedrals all over the world. Once you start to wake up and seeing that your history is being stolen and it's right there in front of our face, we walk by these buildings and these streets and this architecture and we're not taught, so we don't see it, that maybe politics is the thing that keeps us entrapped. They can get away with so many things. That big, huge building right there, what goes on behind those doors, you're not allowed in there. All of our, official government buildings are on a scale and built just like all the other buildings around the world. And you're not allowed to get into them and go down in them and see the artwork and know what's the functioning behind them. It's not like you can't physically go in. We don't even have blueprints of them. We don't have any kind of